We're set up here in Unity looking to create a UI menu for our VR app that the Google VR SDK can interact with. Now, currently in our scene, we've already set up a rigid body first-person shooter controller, which, as you can see, does contain our main camera. Additionally, on our main camera, we've added a Google VR reticle pointer so that the user's gaze point is visible. And also in our scene, we've added a Google VR event system, which allows us to send VR events. So with all of this in place, the next thing we want to do is set up a UI menu in our scene. To do that, I'm going to say here, create UI, and I'll first add a canvas. And then what we'll do is add a button to the canvas. So again, we'll just create UI and go for a button, which, as you can automatically see, shows up in our hierarchy under the canvas and also in our game view along the lower left-hand corner. Quickly selecting our canvas again, what I'm going to do is jump over to its inspector and set the render mode for the canvas to world space. And then I'll just quickly reposition everything so that our button is visible. So that looks good there. And now with my canvas selected, if I take a look at the inspector, what I'll point out is that by default, there's going to be this graphic raycaster script attached to it. We're not going to be using this particular raycaster script, so I'm going to disable that in favor of a Google VR graphic raycaster script that's provided to us. I'm going to search for that here in my project assets by saying GVR pointer graphic. And there we can see our script. The whole name, as you can see, is actually Google VR Pointer Graphic Raycaster. So selecting this, I'm going to drop it onto my canvas instead. And then I'll select my canvas in my hierarchy and make sure that that is set up. So this is the Google VR equivalent of the default graphic raycaster, making sure that we can gaze at our UI menu items. If we focus in now a little bit more on our button, I'm going to select it and I'll show you in its inspector. It comes with a script here that can handle traditional button clicks. As we know, mouse clicks isn't really a standard VR interaction, so I'll go ahead and disable this. And what we want to be able to do is handle user gaze. To do that, we're going to add our own script component. So I'm going to get one set up using the add component button. And I'll just give this a name here of interactive button. Once the script has been attached, I'm going to search for it in my project assets. And when I find it, double click, which is going to allow me to edit this script in MonoDevelop. Once MonoDevelop opens up, the only thing we're going to do in our interactive button script is add a method that we intend to call when the user's gaze is over our menu item. I'm going to give that method a name here of onGazeEnter, and as you can see, we're keeping it simple. We're just going to be logging out to the console gaze entered. Let's save our script now, go back over to Unity, where the next thing we need to do is actually add an event trigger to our button that can call the function we just set up. So again, selecting the button here, I'll quickly scroll to the bottom of its inspector and we want to add another component. This one is going to be an event trigger. Once our event trigger is attached, we're going to use the add new event type button. And we want to add a pointer enter event. And once that's set up, we're going to use the plus icon here to indicate a function that should run based on the pointer enter. I'm going to set my target object here as my button, which then allows me to set my function based on our attached interactive button component and the methods it contains. As we expect, our onGazeEnter method is there, so let's go ahead and select that. And now our event trigger is all set up. So at this point now, if we play our scene, we should be able to test that we can gaze at this UI button that we set up and get back some kind of result. And we can see there right away, once my scene kicks in, my reticle actually got bigger, so that's letting me know that I do have user interaction. And if I were to press Alt here and look away from the button, the reticle gets smaller, so that's promising. And so I'll just go back over the button and jump over to the console, where again, if I look away and then look back, we can confirm that we are getting that output gaze entered. So that's the basics of interacting with a UI menu item using Google VR. And now, depending on what you needed to do in your application, you might go ahead and kick off some user interaction right away once the user gazes at this button, or you might kick off a timer of some sort with a graphical counter indication that allows the user a less immediate time-based kind of confirmation.